Please be advised, this episode does have content that some may find distressing. As always, listener discretion is advised and it is not suitable for anyone under the age of 13.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of It's Murder Up North. If you love the podcast, please show your support by sharing, liking and leaving 5-star reviews. You can also follow the show on Twitter and Facebook. Or you can become a Patreon member, get access to early ad-free releases and exclusive content. In today's episode, I cover the case of Jessica Patel, who was devoted to her career and her family. She had fulfilled her goals except for one, to be a mother, but her dream would never be realised, as her life would be cruelly taken. Here is Jessica's story. Our families are our first teachers. They protect and provide for us, and in many cases can shape the person we will become. In the Hindu community, as with many religions, family is considered to be of great importance, with each person in that unit playing a specific role. Parents teaching their children about their faith, the difference between right and wrong, and providing them with the foundations and support they need in order to have a happy and healthy life. In return, children are expected to be respectful, obedient, and that they will take care of their parents when they grow old. Parents and children are supported by the extended family of aunties, uncles and grandparents, forming a strong support system and close family bonds. Jessica Patel grew up with this strong sense of family. Raised amongst the large Hindu community in the West Yorkshire city of Leeds, Jessica was born on the 16th of September 1983. As the oldest daughter, her naturally maternal instincts made her like a mini-mum around the household. From an early age, she had two main ambitions. She wanted a career and a family of her own. As her sister Manel recalled, quote, "She had her whole life ahead of her, a life in which she simply wished for true love, a family of her own and to live happily ever after." And it seemed for Jessica that her dreams were coming true when she married Mitesh Patel in the garden of her family home in Leeds. The couple had known each other since childhood. Having grown up in the same area of the city, they would often play together. But by their teens, they had formed separate friendship groups and drifted apart. At 18, Jessica left her family home to study pharmaceuticals at De Montfort University in Leicester. Despite being 100 miles from home, she returned to Leeds whenever she had the chance. However, she'd find a little piece of home in Leicester when she became reacquainted with her childhood friend, Mitesh. The pair's romance didn't blossom until they both began studying at Manchester University together. Mitesh showered Jessica with affection, flowers and gifts. His outgoing and likeable personality perfectly complemented her bubbly and kind nature, and they were both driven and ambitious individuals. For Jessica, her ambition was only outweighed by her love for her family, and when her mother was diagnosed with cancer, she didn't hesitate to take a break from her studies in order to be at her mother's bedside. It was through this time that Mitesh provided Jessica with emotional support. He proved himself to be her rock, and when her mother passed away in 2006, he comforted Jessica through her grief. By 2008, the couple had begun talking about their future together, getting married, starting their own business and having children. Yet there was one hurdle that stood in their way: Jessica's father. Although he had seen the caring manner in which Mitesh had treated his eldest daughter, when the time came and Mitesh asked for permission to marry Jessica, her father refused. It is customary in Hindu culture for a union to be blessed by the parents or elders, and to marry without this permission is seen as a couple disrespecting their family. However, despite her father's refusal, Jessica was adamant that Mitesh was the man she wanted to share the rest of her life with. This certainty persuaded her father to change his mind, with him reluctantly agreeing to the union. In the summer of 2009, the couple were married. Of the 3-day event, Mitesh and Jessica celebrated their union, surrounded by their family and friends. It was an occasion Jessica had been dreaming of since she was a child. Growing up, she would have learnt about the importance of marriage for creating a stable foundation through which she could start her own family. She would have understood the sanctity of the vows she made, and that marriage was a sacred pact, not only between herself and Mitesh, but to her faith, her family, and her community. The couple began their married life with Jessica moving in with Mitesh and his family. Her sister Manel recalled her sister's behaviour in those first few months of marriage, quote, "Her relationship with Mitesh seemed very loving, and they always went through the whole palaver of who would put the phone down first every night." By 2016, Mitesh and Jessica had moved to the northeast town of Middlesbrough, settling in an elegant 4-bedroomed Victorian semi-detached, which was set back from the tree-lined road. Having purchased the property for just over £150,000, they set about turning it into a home. They installed a block-paved driveway at the front of the premises. They also had the tired exterior repainted and set about replacing the old drafty windows and doors. One feature Mitesh took great pride in was the installation of CCTV cameras. He liked the idea that he could keep an eye on things no matter where he was. The property was ideally situated, just a 2-minute drive away from the couple's business, Roman Road Pharmacy, which was the fulfilment of another goal, as they both had ambitions to be business owners, with Mitesh having a goal of retiring by the age of 50. Now, with a house of their own and a successful business, the couple sought to grow their family. Jessica longed to be a mother. Having come from a large family, she was eager to have her own little ones to take care of. But this was one dream that would take her on the cruelest emotional roller coaster, having her hopes dashed time after time. Learning that they were unable to conceive naturally, Jessica and Mitesh decided to turn to IVF, which can be both a physically and a mentally draining process that doesn't always result in pregnancy. Despite the heartbreak of 3 unsuccessful attempts, Jessica's desire to have a child spurred her on to undergo the process again. This time she was advised that 3 embryos had been created and were ready for implantation. Hearing this news, Jessica couldn't wait to tell her family. In an ecstatic state, she went to visit them, delighted that there was still hope that she could be a mother. That hope was cruelly torn away from Jessica just 24 hours later, on the 14th of May 2018. When a panicked phone call was received by emergency dispatchers. Quote, "I think we've been burgled and my wife's been attacked. I've just come home. I was just out. I went to get something to eat and to see the lads at work and get my laptop, and I've come home and the house is ransacked and she's just on the floor. She's got duct tape all over her and she's like unconscious. Her hands are really cold. She's got like blood on her nose and stuff dripping out onto the floor." When paramedics arrived at the scene, it was quickly apparent that there was nothing they could do to save the 34-year-old's life. As her distraught husband was comforted by a police family liaison officer, investigators set about trying to piece together what had happened to Jessica Patel. The home showed all the hallmarks of a burglary. Drawers had been removed, their contents strewn across the floor. The wardrobes had been emptied and a number of jewellery boxes had been opened and lay discarded on the bed. A wider search of the scene suggested that the killer had either been let in by Jessica or had entered through the unlocked front door, as there were no signs of forced entry. It was also evident that the perpetrator had left in a hurry, as a mobile phone and a number of other items were found just outside the property, which police theorised were dropped as the killer fled. The following day, Jessica's family travelled from Leeds after being informed that she had been killed during an aggravated burglary. Upon arrival, they were greeted by a grief-stricken Mitesh. They all sought solace in each other's company, as they struggled to comprehend their loss. And their grief was expressed through a statement from her family, who lamented, quote, "We have lost Jessica, a kind-hearted, gentle and selfless person, who was loved dearly by her family and friends. She was completely dedicated to all of her family, and her loss has brought us unbearable pain." Who would want to do this to Jessica and why, were the questions that both the family and the police wanted answering. Had she been targeted by someone in a premeditated attack, by either someone she knew or someone who'd been watching her? Or had this been an opportunistic incident, a burglary gone wrong? News of the 34-year-old's death began to spread, as the media started to pick up on the story of a murder in an affluent area of Middlesbrough. A statement was delivered to the news outlets by Detective Superintendent Tariq Ali, who stated, quote, "A woman has been murdered in her home. At this stage of the investigation, we are not able to say much more than this. Other than that, a team of dedicated officers and specialist staff are now working hard to get to the facts. When a murder takes place in our community, perhaps even near our own homes, we aren't deaf to the fear and worry this causes. As soon as we can say more about this crime, we will say more. But please be assured that our neighbourhood teams are increasing patrols in the area and are out and about, happy to speak to anyone to offer reassurance and talk directly to local people." This statement was later followed by a call for witnesses to come forward, quote, "The avenue is a busy route used by buses, motorists and pedestrians. Detectives are appealing to anyone who may have seen anyone acting suspiciously in the area around the avenue, particularly between the junctions with the Crescent and Lancaster Road, yesterday evening to contact us." These appeals to the public formed just one aspect of the investigation, as officers also explored other avenues to gather information. As in the case with many modern criminal investigations, CCTV can play a vital role in establishing events and identifying individuals of interest. Unlike a human eyewitness, whose testimony may be affected by memory and the passage of time, as long as the CCTV image is good quality and the system has been kept up to date, it can provide an accurate picture of events without any of the external influences or bias which may affect a person. Fortunately for investigators, Jessica's home had CCTV installed, and this could provide them with the key information they needed to help identify the perpetrator. The system was backed up onto a server located in one of the upstairs rooms, but when forensic teams went to extract the hard drive, they discovered it was missing, leading to the question, had the killer removed it before leaving the scene? And if so, this could possibly contradict the theory that the perpetrator left in haste. Also, it suggested that the crime was likely to have been committed by someone who knew the couple and had knowledge of the layout of the home and the camera system. Despite this setback, there were other lines of inquiries to follow up on, including the questioning of people who could help form a clearer picture of Jessica's movements that day. Mitesh stated that he left for work at the pharmacy at around 20 to 7 on the morning of May the 14th, and that Jessica joined him at work approximately 2 hours later. He recalled that at some point that morning, Jessica's dad came to visit them in the shop. At around midday, Mitesh left work and spent the rest of the afternoon going to the gym and running errands before returning home at about 3:30. He didn't notice anything unusual when he arrived home, nor did he see anyone of consequence. He advised that Jessica was due to finish work at 6 o'clock that night, yet at 6:30 she still hadn't arrived home, so he sent her a text. When she didn't respond to that, he called the pharmacy. His employees corroborated this call, advising that Jessica had gotten into a conversation and had simply lost track of time. Mitesh continued to explain that Jessica got home at 7 p.m. 7:45, he realised he had forgotten his laptop at work, so he headed out to collect it and told Jessica he would pick up a takeaway for their evening meal. He headed to the pizzeria, which was a couple of doors down from the pharmacy. Mitesh placed his order before heading to the shop to collect his laptop. He then returned to the takeaway for his pizzas, and while there he recalled that he'd text Jessica to let her know that he was on his way home. At approximately 8:15, he walked through the front door to a scene of devastation. Given this account, investigators surmised that the perpetrator had just half an hour between Mitesh leaving the property and him returning in order to commit the crime. And as soon as Mitesh had gone out on an unplanned errand, it moved them more towards the thought that this was too risky a crime for an opportunistic attack, and suggested that Jessica was either being watched or she'd been attacked by someone she knew. Investigators needed to corroborate the husband's account and set about retracing his movements. Calling at the pharmacy, they took statements from the employees, who confirmed that Mitesh had called in at about 8 p.m. that night. He spoke to them briefly, then headed into the back office, where he was heard moving things around. They noted that he seemed on edge, a statement reinforced by the staff at the pizzeria, who also confirmed that he had been to the takeaway, but appeared uneasy. CCTV footage from both premises was recovered, and having watched the surveillance from the pharmacy, an interesting feature caught their eye. Despite Mitesh claiming he had forgotten his laptop, which had prompted him to leave home, he entered the pharmacy carrying his laptop bag. This piqued investigators' interest, and a subsequent search of the office at the shop only heightened suspicions. Concealed in the office, they found a roll of duct tape, a hard drive, and an empty insulin syringe. When the hard drive was connected, they discovered that it was the one which had been taken from the server at the Patel's home, and upon reviewing the footage it became clear that despite initial appearances of the murder being an aggravated burglary, there was no evidence of anyone else entering the home except for Jessica and Mitesh, leading investigators to suspect that the scene had been staged, and the eye of suspicion fell upon Mitesh. On the 17th of May, 2018, just 3 days after Jessica's death, her husband was arrested on suspicion of murder. To her family, it was hard to comprehend why anyone would want to hurt Jessica, but even harder to accept that she had died at the hands of her husband, a man who just a day earlier they had consoled as he grieved. Jessica's sister, Manel, recalled, "I walked straight up to him, sat down on the sofa and went to hug him. He immediately buried his head in my shoulder. At that point I thought he was genuinely crying." Her father, Jay, was also in disbelief, quote, "Why would somebody do this? Jessica was not the sort of person who would confront anybody, but not for a moment was I thinking Mitesh could have done this. I was comforting him. I held his hand. He let me do all that." Slowly, as police delved deeper into Mitesh and Jessica's relationship, it became apparent that the image of a happy, successful and loving couple was nothing more than a smokescreen, which disguised a darker truth. It was only when the case went to court that family and friends learned the true extent of Jessica's suffering. Each person had known little bits and pieces, but no one had seen the full picture. The couple's marriage was the first thing to come under scrutiny, and despite the happy holiday photos shared on social media and the outward appearance of a devoted couple, the relationship had been built on a foundation of deceit and manipulation. The thin veil began to slip just months after the couple's wedding. The loving and caring man Jessica had fallen for disappeared, replaced by a callous and selfish individual. This was apparent when her grandfather became seriously ill. Jessica longed to be at his side to help nurse him in his final days, but Mitesh refused to allow her to go home to her family. Jessica later told her sister that when the couple were in the car, she had pleaded with him to allow her to stay, but her heartfelt pleas were met with violence when Mitesh struck her across the cheek. Over the following months, Jessica graduated from Manchester University and began working at a pharmacy in Bradford, where she formed friendships with her co-workers, to whom she confessed that she had concerns about her husband's sexuality, admitting that they weren't intimate and that despite only being married for just over a year, they slept in separate beds. Her suspicions grew regarding Mitesh's feelings towards her, and in 2012, when Jessica went on holiday with her family, she disclosed the issues in her marriage, the lack of intimacy, and her husband spending most of his time on the phone to another man. She described the relationship as being problematic and expressed that she was unhappy. However, Jessica also stated she was determined to do what she could to make the marriage work. Her gut instinct would be proven right when her sister spotted a text message on Mitesh's phone, which suggested that the sender was more than just a friend. Manel recalls her sister's concerns, quote, "Something wasn't quite right. Jessica was voicing concerns that Mitesh was spending a lot of time on his phone and he would walk out of the room if she came in while he was on it. She knew it wasn't right, but he took his phone everywhere with him, even into the toilet, and she didn't know his passcode to check who he was talking to. When we told Jessica about the message from Amit, Mitesh blamed her for meddling and not trusting him. Following this intervention from Jessica's family, they noticed a change in the amount of contact they had with their sister. As Mitesh began to exert more control over the people she could see and talk to, he further isolated her from her family when the couple moved to Middlesbrough, an hour's drive away from Leeds. In April 2015, the couple purchased the pharmacy, and shortly after this, Mitesh began telling people his wife was expecting twins, which was later revealed to be a lie, one which would have caused Jessica mental and emotional pain, with statements at the inquest stating that, quote, Jessica was upset when she then had to tell the members of staff the truth. Mitesh thought it was funny, and Jessica's family believe he was using her desire to conceive and bear a child against her as a way of exercising control. This was a particularly cruel act, given that the couple were at the time struggling to conceive, which prompted Jessica to attend a fertility clinic in October of 2015. This was followed in April of 2016 by a visit to her doctor, to whom she confided that she was feeling increasingly under pressure to have a child. Concerned for her mental health, the doctor referred Jessica for therapy. However, she returned to the doctor 5 months later, suffering from low mood and anxiety, for which she was prescribed antidepressants. Over the next 2 years, Jessica endured the painful and exhausting process of IVF, each failed attempt causing her to spiral deeper into depression, and the actions of her husband only served to worsen her suffering. Only during the trial did it emerge that despite Jessica going through IVF treatments, all her efforts were being hampered by Mitesh, who, unbeknownst to his wife, was taking sperm suppression drugs, which would have greatly decreased Jessica's chances of conceiving. All the while, he proceeded to threaten her that he would leave her if she did not carry on with the IVF procedures. As the people who arguably spent the most time with the couple due to working alongside them in the pharmacy, the employees noted that there was tension between their employers, and they were often left stunned by Mitesh's treatment of his wife. In statements given at the trial and subsequent inquiry into Jessica's death, employees stated that Mitesh, quote, often shouted at Jessica in front of staff and customers, and that, quote, he often reduced Jessica to tears in the shop, slammed doors, threw things, and kicked the plinth of the island in the dispensary. Mitesh became increasingly volatile, with colleagues noticing that Jessica would arrive at work with marks and bruises. One employee recalled that Jessica had suffered an injury to her leg, which the 34-year-old claimed she had no recollection of what had caused it, but admitted there was a large bruise on her thigh. Another colleague was later told by Mitesh regarding the injury that, quote, he had thrown his mobile phone towards Jessica, which had hit her leg, and that she bruised easily. Not only was Mitesh verbally, physically, and mentally abusive towards Jessica, he also conducted numerous extramarital affairs throughout their marriage. These started as short-lived flings, usually formed on various dating apps including Grindr, and following the murder, police uncovered interactions between Mitesh and several men on his computer and phone. In 2017, his sexuality was exposed to the employees at the pharmacy, when the staff reviewed a recording and discovered footage of Mitesh being intimate with another man. It was also evident that as early as 2012, Jessica had become aware of her husband's sexual orientation and unfaithfulness. When seeking guidance on the issue, her mother-in-law allegedly advised her that Mitesh wouldn't stray if she was a better wife. Reminding Jessica of her duty to her husband and the sanctity of her vows, Jessica, who through years of abuse had become a submissive partner in the marriage, determined that she would do what it took to be a good wife. Despite Jessica's commitment to the relationship, Mitesh continued his affairs. Most of them were meaningless one-night stands. However, in 2011, Mitesh met Dr. Amit Patel, whom he developed feelings for after meeting him on the dating app Grindr. it was messages between Amit and Mitesh that was seen by Jessica in 2012, which prompted her family to confront him. But no intervention could prevent Mitesh from continuing his affair, even after Amit moved to Australia. In retrospect, it was clear that as Mitesh's feelings for Amit grew, his treatment of Jessica worsened. He confided in his lover that he had only married Jessica because she was in love with him, and saw it as a marriage convenience which allowed him to hide his true sexuality from his family and the wider Hindu community. It was argued at the trial that as the relationship between Mitesh and Amit developed, the former's desire to be with the man he loved also intensified, and that Jessica now formed a barrier preventing the pair from being together. The prosecution would proceed to present the case that Mitesh had been plotting ways to end his marriage, but in a manner that would benefit him. Prosecutors suggested that in order for Mitesh to move to Australia to be with his lover, he would require money, and that divorce would be an expensive exercise which could limit his ability to emigrate due to lack of funds. They continued to surmise that Mitesh's solution to this problem was to take out life insurance policies on his wife, which he would claim upon her death. Prosecutor Nicholas Campbell QC stated, quote, "From various life insurance policies, Mitesh Patel stood to profit from his wife's death to the tune of £2 million. He was planning to use this money to start a new life in Australia, shared with the person he really loved." As well as Mitesh's sexuality, the other aspect of this case that has garnered attention is the plans Mitesh allegedly had for his wife's frozen embryos, with it being claimed that messages exchanged between Amit and Mitesh suggested that he intended to use the embryos after Jessica's death in order to start a family with Amit. That does explain his eagerness for his wife to continue with IVF, despite the devastating impact it was having on her mental health. He continued to coerce her, using Jessica's own desire to be a mother, and threatening to leave her if she stopped the treatments. Mitesh made it clear that he wanted a family, and Jessica could help him achieve that goal. Unfortunately, he had no intention of her being a part of the future he desired. Internet searches proved that Mitesh had been researching what would be required to move to Australia, as well as him viewing various properties online, which only served to back up the prosecution's argument. It also helped to prove that there had been a great deal of premeditation prior to the murder. Not only had Mitesh performed searches regarding his future plans, he had also used the internet to look up ways in which he could end Jessica's life, something he appeared to have been researching for years rather than months or weeks. Some of the searches performed included: "I need to kill my wife," "insulin overdose," "plot to kill my wife, do I need a co-conspirator?" "hiring Hitman UK," and "how much methadone will kill you?" When it came to the day of the actual murder, it seemed that Mitesh had concocted the plan to commit the perfect crime, and used unsuspecting people to be his alibis. He had started his plot a few weeks prior, with Mitesh making a comment to a neighbour regarding his concerns for Jessica's safety, as he claimed that his wife's naive and trusting nature meant that she would open the door to strangers, and sometimes left the door unlocked. This small comment, in hindsight, helped to establish the idea that Jessica unwittingly allowed her killer into the home. As stated, Mitesh also created his own seemingly airtight alibi. By going to the pharmacy and pizzeria, he garnered witnesses who could confirm that he was not at the home when the attack occurred. Unbeknownst to these individuals, the crime had already been committed. The post-mortem findings were presented to the court, with Jessica's final moments being disclosed to those gathered. The coroner concluded that Jessica had been subdued with insulin, yet before she succumbed to its effects, she tried to fight off her attacker, who, from marks on the victim's neck, had attempted to strangle Jessica. However, when this didn't work, the perpetrator proceeded to place a bag over the 34-year-old's head, resulting in Jessica suffocating. The prosecution made it clear how hard Jessica Patel fought against her attacker, not only from the scratches on her neck, inflicted by her own fingernails as she frantically tried to loosen Mitesh's grip. She also wounded her husband, who was found to have marks on his arms consistent with being scratched, injuries he told the police had occurred while he was at the gym. Following the attack, Mitesh first headed to the pizza shop, which was a simple ruse to make it appear as though Jessica was still alive, whilst his trip to the pharmacy, which not only provided him an alibi, also allowed him to conceal incriminating evidence. A roll of duct tape, which when compared with that used on Jessica, was found to be a match. The empty needles that were shown to have contained insulin were concluded to have been used on Jessica, with the post-mortem showing high doses of the drug in her system. And most incriminating of all was the hard drive from the couple's CCTV system. Something Mitesh had taken great pride in when it was installed, helped to bring about his downfall. When the images captured did not corroborate the idea of the third party's involvement in Jessica's death. Another piece of technology would also prove crucial in proving Mitesh's guilt, and it is considered to be one of the first times it has been utilised during a murder trial. Both Mitesh and Jessica like to stay healthy, with the couple regularly attending the gym, so it wasn't surprising to find that they both had a fitness app installed on their phones, which helped to monitor their activity and heart rate throughout the day. It would also help to convict Mitesh. Using the app's records of the day of the murder, investigators were able to analyse the data gathered. Because of this, they noticed an increase in activity around the time the murder was believed to have taken place. They also found that both phones' movements became synchronised. It showed them that both devices were together during the time they believed that Mitesh had been staging the scene, with them only separating when Jessica's phone was discarded in the driveway. It was love for another person that led Mitesh to murder, but ultimately it would be Mitesh's love for technology, his phone and CCTV, that would help the jury to find him guilty. Mr. Justice Goss proceeded to sentence Mitesh to a term of 30 years, with the judge taking into account the premeditation and the financial benefits the defendant would have gained from his wife's death. In summing up, the judge stated, quote, "You have no remorse for your actions. Any pity you have is for yourself. As the police investigation progressed, the full extent of your attitude and behaviour towards Jessica over the 9 years of your marriage was revealed. She clearly loved you and was a dutiful wife. She wanted nothing more than to have children and live a normal family life. The difficulty is that you had no sexual attraction to her. You were attracted to men. She was lonely, often upset and controlled by you. With hindsight, it is apparent this was for your own selfish reasons, and not with any intention of making her happy." A review into Jessica's death classified the murder as an honour killing, highlighting, quote, "cultural beliefs about sexuality, and that it was an example of something that might have been perceived as adultery and immoral behaviour within the Hindu community." It also conceded that, quote, "divorce on the grounds that Mitesh was gay could never have been the reason for him to end his marriage. Consequently, the only way that Mitesh may have felt able to leave the marriage with honour was by killing Jessica. Jessica did nothing that was or might be perceived as dishonourable. However, her death at the hands of Mitesh should be considered an honour killing, because Mitesh killed her to try and protect his own honour." Reflecting on Jessica's life and death, her family told the Independent Review, quote, "Jessica was a rarity. She was beautiful on the outside, and even more so on the inside. She had a truly selfless soul, and avoided everyone she met with a kindness and generosity that was second to none. As the firstborn in our family, she brought an immense amount of joy, as a loving daughter, granddaughter, niece, elder sister, and aunt. She had this lovable smile which encapsulated her gentle nature and innocence, and would make our house feel like a home. She was ambitious, and despite some challenging times, through her own determination and hard work she achieved her dream to be a pharmacist. As a highly commended medical professional, she understood the true impact of her role, which was to help people and make a difference, something she did every day. A truly inspiring example to us all of what you can achieve with courage and perseverance. She had a whole life ahead of her, a life in which she simply wished for true love, a family of her own, and to live happily ever after. Above all, her greatest wish was to be a mother, to share the love she had in her heart, and to feel the same happiness she afforded to our family as a child. She deserved to have a wonderful life, but these wishes will now remain unfulfilled. Even in her own hardships, she would still offer you her warm smile, a testament to the wonderful person she was and should be remembered for. Thank you for joining me for this episode of It's Murder Up North. The next episode will be coming soon. So in the meantime, keep an eye on those shadows.